Kicking off the list at number 10, WASP 96b. Okay, we have to talk about some James Webb goodness in this list, of course. NASA just released a handful of photos from its $10 billion project. This telescope launched last Christmas and the gifts have finally arrived. And I'm terrified. We are so small in the universe. What is going on? In the cluster of photos, we see a giant exoplanet called WASP 96. And no, it is not full of wasps. I mean, I hope not, who's to say? But it could hold secrets behind human existence. WASP 96 is a gas planet half the size of Jupiter, 1,150 years away from us. It orbits its star every 3 to 5 days, so I hope you love New Year's parties because you're gonna have a lot of them. Thanks to our boy James Webb up there in space, we can now see that there's lots of water surrounding this planet. Clouds and haze, says NASA. That's good. I'm excited for more water to be found in the universe, but I'm also nervous because, more water means more fish and, also up aliens. Number 9, KEPLER 1649c. Yeah, it's not all about James Webb today, okay? NASA's Kepler Space Telescope also discovered this one a while back, but while NASA was revisiting old observations in 2018 before, retiring said telescope, they noticed previous computer algorithms misidentified it, and upon second glance, it's indeed an exoplanet. Yep, 300 light years away from Earth, it's a tad larger than our planet, and it receives a good amount of starlight. It receives about 75% of what our own sun gives off. Thing is, Kepler 1649c orbits a red dwarf, meaning solar flare-ups could prevent further life from evolving, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, I don't know. No aliens, please, thanks. Number 8, Ross 128b. I love the names for all these exoplanets. It's just like Jake 21a. You're like, okay, potentially habitable. So much monster energy. Back in 2017, this exoplanet was discovered by Xavier Bonfils at the Institute of Planetology and Astrophysics of Grenoble. Now this one is 11 light years away from us. It's pretty close. And it only takes 10 days to complete a trip around its M-type star. The star is redder, cooler, and dimmer, so perhaps this planet could one day host life. Or maybe it one day already did. Who's to say? Either way. Don't want it. Don't want any part of these aliens. Number 7, Ice Moon. We're looking billions of years into the past, we're searching cosmic clouds light years away, but what about our own galaxy? What about our own solar system? What about our own moon? Could there one day be life on our moon? Back in 2018, NASA confirmed that there is surface ice on the moon's north and south pole. This was huge. NASA mineralogy mapper instruments picked up ice traces near the darkest and coldest craters of the rock. There are 3 specific signatures that prove that there is 100% water ice on the surface of moon. Yeah, and we're talking about aliens whipping out of our oceans. Like, what's going on here? Something's afoot. Number 6, LEVELLAND Flaming Thing. Nice, that's a good title. Imagine opening the newspaper back in 1957 and on the front cover you read, "LEVELLAND Flaming Thing brings world knocking at city's door." That's alarming, that's a pretty crazy one. What does that even mean, right? Back in 1957 in Levelland, Texas, multiple eyewitness reports began to flood in about an egg-shaped object or this circular flash of light, something egg-like, jetting across Levelland skies. I just like saying Levelland, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to say it as many times as I can. I'm probably saying it wrong, it's probably like Leveland, but I'm gonna keep going with Levelland. One witness recalls the object making a loud Super Hornet and some sort of unidentified flying object. A UFO, or a UAP, sorry, we don't say UFOs anymore, now it's a UAP. There weren't a ton of details released about what exactly happened during this encounter because there weren't any details to provide, but the Raytheon Advanced Targeting Forward Locking Infrared, or at Fleur, if you're out of breath like me. They were able to capture an extremely fast-moving white oval that was around 45 feet long. The oval had no wings and didn't appear to have any kind of exhaust either. They were tracking a UFO at the altitude of 25,000 feet just above the Atlantic Ocean. And then they were shocked because the craft rotated on its side and then just flew away. There was no explanation released with the footage because it truly is unbelievable and no one can figure it out yet. If you have any ideas, sound off below. All these mystery eggs floating in and out of our towns. Number 4, Europa life. One of Jupiter's moons, called Europa, has a red tinge around it, and in 2001, NASA scientists revealed that it's possible that alien microbes may be responsible for said red tinge. The surface of its moon is mostly icy, but it has been shown that it reflects infrared radiation in a bizarre way. This means that something is binding it together, but researchers haven't been able to come up with the correct combination of elements and compounds to make this data make any sense. Know what I mean? There's some bacteria on Earth that can thrive in extreme conditions, some fish that have never seen light ever and they're glowy somehow. The surface temperature might be too cold for them to survive, but the warmer interior might be where they're all located. Some geological activity on the moon could then push them closer to the surface, where they then flash frozen in place. What a horrible way to go. Number 3, Venus cloud. Back in September 2020, astrobiologists everywhere were excited but also skeptical at some new potential evidence that had been found in the upper clouds of Venus. You probably heard about this, right? Firstly, can we just take a second to really think about how cool of a job it is to be an astrobiologist? To just be like, yep, aliens, let's do it. And then they plan a mission and then take off. Anyways, phosphine is very rare, and usually it's poisonous gas here on Earth that is basically always met with the presence of living organisms, right? So we find this gas, it's bad, but always connects with life. Venus hasn't really been at the top of the list for choices for finding potential life due to its surface temperature, of course, and pressure to the, sulfuric acids in the clouds, and it's horrible and you can never live there ever. But this new evidence could prove to say something otherwise. 2 separate telescopes were able to pick up the signatures of phosphine in a cloud that had a similar temperature and pressure to Earth, and while this isn't concrete evidence of, space beings or bugs or anything like that, it'll at least be a reminder that we should be continuing to look for life or clues around life, you know what I mean? Even in the most unlikely places, like Venus clouds. Maybe it's space bugs also, who knows? That'd be gross. Space moths that live in clouds of phosphine. That would suck. Number 2. Astronaut sightings. We could sit on Earth all day and talk about the potential for said alien life, but who would know more than the people who have actually been to space, right? I mean, who am I? I'm just a guy who makes YouTube videos. Ask the people who have been out there, which are of course astronauts. Ask Astronauts. That'd be a cool website, Ask Astronauts. It probably is a website, actually. Definitely on the list of the coolest and scariest jobs in the entire world. There haven't been a ton of people who have had the, privilege of experiencing space firsthand, but there are even less of them who have claimed to see something that could potentially prove alien existence. People who have claimed these sorts of things include Edgar Mitchell, Catherine Coleman, and Dr. Brian O'Leary. The very interesting part about many of these claims is that they will also include some sort of government cover-up as well with their claim. So it's always pretty juicy. There was also Buzz Aldrin, who spoke about his Apollo 11 experience, and he detailed the crew seeing something flying alongside them, but at first they believed it was the final stage of a detached rocket. But then Mission Control confirmed that that rocket was actually 6,000 miles away from them at the time, so there was no answers on what said flying object could have been. But they noticed it, as would you in a spaceship looking out of a window. And finally, number 1, moon life. Titan is one of Saturn's many moons. Saturn has 82 moons, so if there's any aliens hiding near Saturn, we're never gonna find them. They have many places to hide. A lot of nooks and crannies to hide behind. A lot of moons to hide behind. That's a lot of moons, and around 10 years ago, NASA's Cassini spacecraft detected water under its massive shell of ice, which is really exciting. Again, like I said with our own moon, even traces of water is amazing, let alone this much. To quote a Cassini team member, the search for water is an important goal in solar system exploration, and now we've spotted another place where it is abundant. NASA has also detected low frequency radio waves on the icy moon, and it sounds pretty eerie. So we have radio waves and we have water. Sounds like aliens to me, my friends. As far as space mysteries go, anywhere that has water or signs of water, fish. Some sort of alien fish is hiding in there. Look at our own planet. Look at an octopus. An octopus changes colors while it dreams. Alien.
Number 10. The growing doll. Let's kick off this list with one that definitely terrifies me the most. If you think dolls are creepy, then just wait until I tell you about this one. In 1918, a man in Japan purchased a seemingly normal doll for his sister. Unfortunately, the sister passed away soon after, so the family created a shrine in her memory and placed the doll within it. As time passed, however, they noticed something incredibly unsettling about the doll. It was growing hair. That's right, the hair on the doll was getting longer and longer as more time passed. Because of this, they believed that the doll had become possessed with the restless spirit of the little girl. As a result, they entrusted it to the care of a temple where it still remains to this day, growing more hair. You are able to go to the temple and visit the doll, but photography is strictly prohibited. The priests at the temple say that the doll's hair has now grown down past its knees, and they say that her mouth is opening, slowly growing human teeth. Number 9. Inunaki Tunnel. Deep within the mountains of Fukuoka, Japan, you will find the Inunaki Tunnel, home to a dark and troubled history. In 1988, the remains of a young man were found within the tunnel, having been killed by a group of teenage boys. It has also historically been a training ground for Buddhist practitioners who say that the tunnel is a spiritual hotspot for lost souls. As a result, the tunnel has been sealed off with concrete blocks, but there is an opening at the top where anyone who's foolish enough can climb up and sneak inside. People who have gone inside have reported the feeling of being watched by a malicious energy, with reports of camera malfunctions, paranormal activity, and unidentifiable noises taking place within the tunnel. Some people say that they can hear the cries of the man who died within, his spirit potentially haunting the now abandoned place. Number 8. Buddha Statue. In 2014, an ancient golden Buddha statue was examined, and researchers discovered a horrifying secret hidden within. X-rays showed the body of a real monk that had been mummified within the statue, sitting in the exact same position. Researchers believe that the man had taken part in a process known as self-mummification. Centuries ago, this was a common practice for Buddhist monks across Asia. To avoid fat and moisture causing their bodies to decay after they died, they would eat little to nothing in the time leading up to the end of their lives, eating things like pine needles, tree bark, and sesame seeds. This process would last for years as they got older, and they would then ingest a poisonous sap to finally end their lives. Researchers believe that the man inside the statue was a Buddhist monk who died around the year 1100. What was most unsettling though was that the man's body was basically hollow, containing papers covered in messages instead of his organs. Number 7. KAPPA remains. The KAPPA is a cryptid that is native to Japan. For anyone who doesn't know, a cryptid is described as an animal whose existence or survival to the present day is disputed or unsubstantiated. Some famous cryptids include Bigfoot, Mothman, and the Loch Ness Monster. A KAPPA is a water creature that is described as being green, having a scaly skin and webbed feet, long elastic arms, and looking humanoid. They are said to lure people to pools of water where they then drown them. If you're looking to avoid being drowned, then it is recommended to carve your name and birth date on a cucumber and feed it to a KAPPA, because then they'll apparently leave you alone forever. In May of 2014, the remains of an actual KAPPA were supposedly discovered and then put on display. They were apparently from a KAPPA that was killed all the way back in the year 1818. It doesn't seem to have been confirmed what the remains are, so could this be actual evidence of cryptids being real? Number 6. Goddess of Death. If you're a fan of cursed objects, then let me introduce you to this statue titled the Woman of Lem, also known as the Goddess of Death statue. It is crafted out of limestone around 3500 BC and was discovered in Cyprus in 1878. I know what you're thinking, isn't Cyprus a part of Europe and not Asia? Well, actually, while the country of Cyprus is culturally and politically a part of Europe, it is geographically in Asia and considered transcontinental. So it counts. And if you think it doesn't count, you can take it to the complaints department. Alright, back to why this statue is cursed. Every single family that it has belonged to over the generations has died. The first family to own it had 6 members, all of whom died within 7 years of coming into ownership. The second owner's family died after only 4 years. The third third family to own it also started passing away, but the 2 remaining members seemed to realize what was happening and donated it to the Royal Scottish Museum. Number 5. King Tut's trumpets. Let's take a look at some more cursed objects, this time from King Tut's tomb in Egypt. In 1922, a group of archaeologists entered King Tut's tomb and found many interesting objects, including a set of wooden, silver, and bronze trumpets. In 1939, BBC Radio recorded the sound of the trumpets so that people could hear the ancient instruments being played. A few months later, World War II began, and a legend started that the trumpets were capable of summoning wars. Egyptian trumpets have apparently often been used on the battlefield for alerting and directing soldiers, so the legend isn't completely unfounded. And there are Egyptian archaeologists that believe trumpets have mystical powers in relation to war. In 2011, an anonymous staff member had been photographing and documenting the trumpets and decided to play one of them. The Egyptian Revolution then taking place later that year. Number 4. KAALA BANDAR. Now let's travel to New Delhi, India for another apparent discovery of a real-life cryptid, this time one known as a KAALA BANDAR. In May of 2001, one of these creatures was apparently terrorizing New Delhi. They're described as being around 5 feet tall with thick black hair all over their body and glowing red eyes. It was also described as wearing a metal helmet and having metal claws. All over the city, reports started flooding in of attacks from the so-called monkey man, and citizens were terrified. A total of 3 people actually died as a result, from a woman falling down a staircase to 2 men who were cornered by the creature and fell from a building. Many reports came in of bites and scratches that had come from the creature, and people in the town were scared of even going outside, armed men guarding the neighborhoods at night. Eventually, sightings stopped coming in and the town was able to relax. Number 3. The Terracotta Army. In China in 1974, a group of farmers made one of the most significant archaeological discoveries ever. They were digging a well when they found what they thought was a statue of Buddha. In fact, it was the famous Terracotta Army. The army consists of over 8,000 foot soldiers, chariots, and horses, which were buried along the first Chinese emperor back in the year 210 BC. They were built to commemorate his massive empire. As it turns out, the Terracotta Army may be cursed, the farmers believing that any disruption to the army would bring misfortune. And as time went on, this seemed to be true. The farmers and land were taken over by the government, business officials, and third-party groups who wanted to take advantage of and profit off the army. The farmland was demolished and replaced with gift shops and attractions. The original farmers have passed away except for 2 who now work in the same shops that took over their land, signing autographs for a mere $2 a day. Number 2. Lady Di. When we think of well-preserved specimens, we often think of creatures that were held in ice before being discovered thousands of years later, often still having hair, skin, and even blood in their veins. So now let me tell you about Lady Di, a human woman who was kept perfectly preserved inside an airtight tomb for 2,000 years. Researchers discovered the tomb of the woman in 1971, the wife of an important Han Dynasty administrator who passed away in 163 BC and received the burial of a royal. She was placed in a crypt with over 1,000 luxurious items like makeup and 162 statues who would be her servants in the afterlife. Thanks to the seal of the tomb, when she was found 2,000 years later, she was still in incredible condition. She had soft skin and hair and even eyebrows and eyelashes, and they were even able to find her last meal, which was melon, and the cause of her death, which had been a heart attack. Unfortunately, since she was discovered, her body has now started to decay, and only pictures can show what she used to look like. Number 1. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond was first discovered in a mine in India, triangular in shape and being described as a beautiful violet color. It was then placed in a statue from which it was apparently later stolen, the thief suffering from an extremely unfortunate death. Since then, it has been said that the Hope Diamond is cursed, anyone who has owned it or even merely touched it having a similar fate. Some owners include Jacques Collet, who took his own life, Princess de Lamballe, who was killed in the French Revolution, and Jean Le Tavernier, who was killed by a pack of wild dogs. The diamond finally came into ownership of Harry Winston, who made the wise choice of donating it to the Smithsonian in 1958, where it remains to this day. There are many more tales of owners who are apparently cursed by the diamond, so feel free to look it up if you're interested. Since the diamond made its home in the Smithsonian, the curse has supposedly ended, and there have been no more reported victims of the jewel.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Particle accelerator. We love science experiments. Baking soda and vinegar, a DIY volcano, boom, let's make a mess. But what if we flew too close to the sun? What if one experiment could, I don't know, hypothetically swallow our known universe? Sounds fun, let's do it. Sir Martin Rees, Britain's royal astronomer, shines some light on a dark possibility in his book, On the Future. The particle accelerator is this massive machine that does exactly that. It smashes these charged particles together at a high speed, all in the name of science. Now we're trying to further understand condensed matter physics, and while it sure sounds impressive, what if it goes south? What if somebody fucks up? Well, if that happens, it could possibly destroy our known universe. Apparently, these particles smashing together could create this strange matter that shrinks Earth down to 300 feet in diameter. So we'd be tiny or dead. Either way, we'd be like, oh shit. Or it creates a black hole. That would suck away our entire existence. Thanks, Martin. Now we'll be able to sleep because I'm thinking of particle colliders. Freddy Krueger and also particle colliders. I'm like, this holiday season sucks. Can't sleep. Number 9. Black holes. Christopher Nolan can't even save us from this one. There are 3 types of black holes. We got stellar, supermassive, and intermediate mass. And they can all kill us easily if they wanted to. Black holes are formed when a star dies. And in turn, we get the strongest Dyson vacuum ever. It sucks in light, so of course we wouldn't make it. There's no chance. There's about 10 million black holes in the Milky Way right now. And the closest one is about 1,500 light years away. So we're looking good for now. We actually got a photo of a black hole not too long ago. It's beautiful. We're learning more and more every year. And one of the scariest facts that I heard was that black holes will be the last thing in the known universe. And these things orbit as well. They don't just sit in the same spot. Like everything else in the galaxy, black holes are also moving around, which means one will eventually get close. Do you think they would tell us if a black hole was about to swallow us? I sure hope not. I mean, no spoilers, come on. I'm only on season 27 of my life. Keep it real. Number 8, solar flares. Solar flares just sound scary, you know? Our star heats up, we literally revolve around it, and it blesses us with life and tan lines and all the good stuff, but sometimes she acts up. Sometimes she creates these powerful magnetic fields that create sunspots larger than our planet. This then creates a stream of radiation. It's called solar wind. Now normally this is a beautiful event. The northern lights happen because of Earth's magnetic field reacting to this radiation. But too much of a good thing can be disastrous. This month even, on October 9th, a large solar flare was spotted, and 3 days later, it hit. The geomagnetic storm reached category G2, which out of 5 is still quite strong. The biggest solar event was actually back in 1859. It's called the Carrington event. It was strong enough to disrupt telegraph communications, even shocking some telegraph operators. Imagine that, if this happens again and it's stronger, we're looking at power outages on a massive scale. You'd be playing VR and then all of a sudden your eyes are like, poof, and just explode. Lovely, immersive. 10 out of 10. Number 7, moving stars. We look at the pyramids of Egypt in awe for many reasons, but as far as placement goes, these 3 pyramids align with the stars of Orion's belt. But what happens when these stars, like everything else in our known universe, moves? The pyramids won't align with stars forever. They will wander, but which direction will these stars go? That's the question here. Well, right now our sun is traveling through the Milky Way. It's carrying us along. We're in this moderately chill space bubble right now, but when we leave this region, say in, I don't know, 50,000 years, we have a great chance of bumping into one of these wandering stars. You think our climate is changing now? Well, you better learn how to be immortal and hang out for 50,000 years. Be a vampire and you'll see what a comet looks like up close. It's very cold and hot at the same time. We're not gonna survive. We have like 20 years left, realistically. Number 6, artificial intelligence. Okay, this one sounds silly, but we're actually quite close to getting Ultron in real life. God help us. We have robots that do parkour now. Like you can push these things, they would still continue to silly walk. Have you seen those videos where they get pushed and they're like, bleep, and they keep going? That's crazy. Now imagine if Siri decided to go rogue one day and then take over the body of one of the Boston Dynamic robots. We're f***ed. It's game over. That's it. I've seen iRobot. I don't want any part of this. No thank you. According to CB Insights, where they asked 52 experts, 52, so specific, they all agreed that AI will eventually be our downfall, and by that time, it's too late. I'm sweating reading that. What? The late Stephen Hawking said AI would be impossible to control. Elon Musk has been reinforcing how crucial it is to regulate AI. We can't regulate technology that we can't predict. That's the main thing here. Even Vladimir Putin says AI will have a profound impact on global politics. And are we really going to disagree with Vladimir Putin? No, we're not. Next. Number 5, asteroid impact. Number 5, asteroid impact. Of course, one of our leading theories as to how humans can all of a sudden go extinct is an asteroid. We've seen movies. These suckers have caused large-scale extinction events before us. Every time there's a meteor shower, people think it's beautiful, when in reality it's like sitting near first and third base at a baseball game. It's flying at you non-stop, like we're way too close. Every meteor shower, I'm just like, if one of these days an asteroid got too close, it would pretty much mean the end of humanity, regardless of where it hits on Earth. In fact, an asteroid named Apophis is set to slam into us in 100 years or so. Now, we originally thought that it would hit in 2029, but now we can add 100 years on top of that. It's a big orbit. So we're okay for now. For your grandkids though, heads up Whoville, good luck. Number 4, global warming. Okay, this one's on us, folks. Or at least a little bit. We're for sure to blame in some capacity. Now I'm trying to fight it. Around 90% of scientists say that humans are to blame for global warming, especially people who vape. That's what they said. I read it myself. I'm not making that up. According to climate.gov, we're cooking our planet with heat-trapping gases. Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere equals heat. Our global average temperature has gone up 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit since the late 90s. Carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, nitrous, and numerous chlorofluorocarbons, which is fun to say. Chlorofluorocarbons, nice. More like borofluorocarbons. Billy Madison reference. Stop littering. Next. Number 3, Yellowstone National Park. Nothing like a big old volcano to shake up your day. The supervolcano rumbling under Yellowstone National Park could wipe out millions if it decided to go off one day. It's exploded 3 times in the past. 2 million years ago, pop. 1.3 million years ago, pop. And then 664,000 years ago, boom. The next one, well, it could happen as soon as you click like and subscribe. How scary is that? Back in 2014, a team of researchers laid out what an erupting Yellowstone could actually look like in real life, and it's terrifying. It's massive. Entire states would be gone. Poof. Hot magma would then rain down as far as San Francisco, and on top of all that chaos, volcanic ash would cover most of our sunlight. It would be a dark and cold world for a little while. They of course had a Yellowstone scene in the movie 2012, and while sure, it's cinematic, I guess, it would be a lot louder and way faster. You can't check your rearview mirrors while Yellowstone is blasting off. I'm sorry folks, you just can't do this. Number 2, expanding sun. Our sun isn't strong enough to create a black hole after its death, which is a nice thought after hearing about black holes, sucking at light and your hopes and dreams. This is good news. But we do know that our sun will eventually die, and it's set to happen in about, drumroll, 7 billion years, so plenty of time to get that tan at the water park. We're still looking alright. It'll eventually become a white dwarf though, just floating in the cosmos. Now we won't get to see this of course because we'll be long gone, but if anybody is still hanging out by then, just still kicking it, still healing around, they'll unfortunately witness the sun get larger and cooler. It's predicted that it'll suck in Venus and Mercury, but as for Earth, well, solar winds generated would hypothetically be strong enough to slow Earth down. So we wouldn't get sucked into the sun, we would instead face a slow, hot death. And you thought it was hot outside now. Well, hang out for a bit. Well, it's pretty bad, but it'll get worse. And finally, number 1, nuclear weapons. In 1938, history changed forever when German nuclear physicist Otto Hahn Fritz Strassmann and Lise Meitner discovered nuclear fission in a lab in Berlin. They discovered that an atom splitting into lighter atoms caused a powerful blast. This was groundbreaking. Humans discovered a new way to power technology, but at the same time they opened the door for nuclear horrors. Atomic bombs. On July 16, 1945, the Trinity test was conducted. The first atomic bomb was detonated in a New Mexico desert. It was deemed a success, with mushroom clouds reaching up to 40,000 feet high. This test changed history forever. Roughly 110,000 lives were later lost at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and many believe that nuclear warfare will truly be the end of humanity. The pure impact alone is one thing, but nuclear winters, where clouds of dust and black smoke just block out the sun for days at a time, could obviously have lasting effects. For example, if there was an all-out nuclear war between Russia and the United States, officials predict that temperatures would drop 8 degrees for 5 or 6 years, so we wouldn't even be able to grow food at that time. It would be absolute chaos. Stop bombing each other.
Number 10, the missing link. According to a study posted by Cardiff University, scientists think they have finally found the missing link that foreshadows the Ice Age, and it's a little too real. What did they know before? Well, scientists knew that Ice Age cycles developed due to periodic changes in the Earth's orbit. The small Small variations in solar energy set off massive shifts in Earth's climate. But how remained a mystery. Well, now scientists think it has everything to do with the melting of the icebergs. Ha ha ha, well, isn't that interesting? When the Earth is in the right position and icebergs begin to melt away from Antarctica, immense volumes of fresh water move into the Atlantic Ocean away from the Southern Ocean. Therefore, the Southern Ocean gets saltier and massive changes in circulation patterns pull CO2 out of the atmosphere. We know that the less CO2 in the atmosphere, the colder the temperature will be as it reduces the greenhouse effect. Therefore, Earth moves towards ice age conditions. Now, I think we can be a little more scared of the ice caps melting. Number 9, lion cubs. Lion cubs in ice? Well, yes indeed. The world is strange and wonderful, and it was once covered in a lot of ice. Union and Dina were the first cave lions to be found, and another was found more recently in Yakutia, Russia. Both sets of remains date back to the ice age around 12,000 years ago. The species uncovered went extinct 10,000 years ago, and these poor babies died in a really sad way. Either their mother died or abandoned them, and the newest cub is so well preserved that you can see how it went to sleep with its little head resting on their paw. They also found 2 other cave lions, Boris and Sparta, in the same area, both perfectly preserved and 18,000 years apart. These 2 little cubs also helped establish the appearance of cave lions without manes. But the most exciting thing about the remains is that it could be used for cloning now that we've completed the genome. Interesting. Number 8. A wolf head. The wolves we have now are pretty massive, but imagine how big their ancestors must have been. Pavel Efimov was searching for mammoth tusks in Siberia, Russia, when he made an unexpected discovery: the head of an Ice Age wolf, perfectly preserved. Its hair, teeth, brain, and ears are fully intact after can't believe this, after 40,000 years frozen in the permafrost. These massive creatures were a little over twice the size of modern day wolves and could crush bone with their jaws. Definitely not the most friendly of creatures. It would have been a full-grown wolf when it died, but it wasn't killed by humans. Why was the head separated from the body then? Well, scientists believe that it died originally intact, but with the melting and shifting and cracking of the ice probably separated them. The most exciting part is that now scientists will be able to study the evolution of the modern day wolf. Number 7, disease. I think we've talked about this on the channel before, but here we are again. In August 2016, 21 people were mysteriously infected by anthrax. This is just one terrifying discovery that scientists have made beneath the ice. Researchers are concerned that some of the world's most deadly viruses are trapped beneath the permafrost from the ice age. And based on this event, they don't seem to be wrong. Not only are they worried about the potential resurfacing of the bubonic plague or smallpox, but something even bigger. Something we may not even have heard of yet. Due to the rapid rate of the ice melting, it is only a matter of time before we figure this out the hard way. We've survived one pandemic. Is another waiting beneath the ice? One layer away from revival? I really hope not. Number 6, giant animals. Considering we have started this list off talking about a lot of animals, it seems to make sense that we highlight a theme here. Ever wonder what it would be like to live in the ice age? Me neither, except for maybe right now, because it's boiling right now. Oh, it's so hot. Never mind. Way too hot. We're just gonna take this off. Ironically, it's way too hot in the studio today, so here we are. Why? Because everything was so much bigger, and even imagining that terrifies me. Megafauna were large, oversized animals that lived around the time of the Ice Age. In fact, it was their playground. Not only was there of course the woolly mammoth, but massive saber-toothed tigers, short-faced bears, and of course the above, massive dire wolves. Plus, you can almost guarantee they were always hungry with food being so scarce. I wonder if people will look back in like 1,000 years from now and think about how small our animals are. But believe me, from giant wombats that could be mistaken for bison to killer birds, not a place we would want to live. But they also had some unique survival skills. For instance, the Ice Age rhino was believed to have had a shovel horn to help remove snow. That's kind of neat. Number 5, human revival. Now, considering all the technology we have today, unless we have a day after the tomorrow kind of situation, if we have another ice age, we might be okay. Might. But I am pretty optimistic because Homo sapiens were able to survive the ice age, so why not we? Despite not being hairy or thick-skinned, they were resourceful and inventive, relying on traps to catch their dinner. The hunting tools they had would have been limited to stones, knives, and arrowheads. Anything more complicated would have been really rare. So instead, they used traps, and this is where it would get kind of gruesome. Once their prey would fall prey to whatever traps were sent, the men would surround the injured creature and maul it to death. Hey, when you're hungry, and in a dog-eat-dog world, it's a privilege to care about how you will kill your next meal. Number 4, mammoth house. What do you do when you don't have bricks and mortar? Well, You build a house out of, bones that you just find lying around. Yeah. According to an article posted in 2020, Russian archaeologists found a massive circle made of the bones of Ice Age creatures. The bones are from creatures that lived over 20,000 years ago. Not only are there 5 mammoths, but reindeer, horses, bears, wolves, red and Arctic foxes. And this isn't the only circle like it. There are around 70 Ice Age bone circles in 25 sites in Ukraine and Russia. Some of the bones were still joined together, which meant that they still had meat on their bones when they were added. In the middle, there are wooden poles that were presumably used to support roofs made of animal hides. There is still speculation as to whether they were used for homes, ritual, or storage buildings, but still, a house of bones sounds odd to us, I know, but imagine having to withstand cold without the tech we have now. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Number 3, mini ice ages. Did you know that we may get a mini ice age before we get a really big one? Like a test run, kind of, if you will. Though they aren't as deadly, they can still cause widespread famine and disease due to failed crops. The last recorded mini ice age happened between the 12th and 14th century, peaking from 1500 to 1850. It mostly took place in the northern hemisphere of Europe, where seas would freeze repeatedly and glaciers would crush whole villages. This happened quite often in places like Switzerland. But even worse, just like in Game of Thrones, they would go whole years without summer. No thank you. No one quite knows what caused this tiny ice age, but scientists have a couple of ideas. One, that it had something to do with volcanic activity, and that it had an effect on the solar energy the Earth was receiving. Whatever the reason, it definitely provides yet another explanation as to why the Middle Ages were just so sad. So sad. Number 2, more CO2 is a good thing? Considering the first point on this list, we know that less CO2 in the atmosphere will lead to colder temperatures, which could mean ice baby. But considering the very real concept of global warming and the fact that we are injecting so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, could that mean we will stave off an ice age? Well, scientists think this might be so. While we definitely need to figure out how to control our output so other problems don't arise, it could help fight off the next ice age, right? Weird. There's an upside to everything. According to Cambridge University, although the planetary cycle makes an ice age inevitable, like the seasons, the only way it can happen is if the CO2 level is too low. At this point, we have pumped so much CO2 into the air that even if it all stopped tomorrow, we would still have enough to keep an ice age at bay for at least 1,000 years. However, if we keep going the way we're going, well, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Like, what do you want? Snowball? Hot Earth? Depends what you like, I guess. How the heck are we gonna get out of this one, you know? And last but not least, the snowball. What's more terrifying than an ice age? A giant snowball. No, not the one that you made to throw at your neighbor. I mean the one that could be our Earth. A snowball Earth is a very terrifying possibility, though probably not as likely. A snowball Earth would destroy much of life on Earth and sink our entire world into a deep freeze. And it did! The snowball Earth was a series of ice ages that occurred during the Neoproterozoic era that were so massive the entire planet froze over 500 million years ago. Why did it happen? Well, scientists from MIT speculate that it was due to a drop in heat so steep that it triggered a runaway effect. The ice expanded so quickly the Earth didn't have time to recover. This drop in temperature might have been prompted by several volcanic eruptions that happened in quick succession. Scientists are unsure as to whether humans could make this happen, but if it did, we wouldn't be able to stop it. At the speed at which the Earth's atmosphere is changing because of us, who knows what could happen. It could go so far it goes the other way around. We just don't know.